right. Welcome. So, I tried to stream where I was playing as Geralt of Rivia in Baldur's Gate 3, and I had a problem with the sound, so I'm going to redo that part. But I was thinking that some of you might be new to Dungeons & Dragons, maybe you're new to Baldur's Gate 3, and you might not be sure what you want to play as. If you're creative, you might come up with your own thing. If you're not creative, maybe you want some inspiration, or maybe you want to play as one of your favorite characters from other type of media. So I thought I would give a few suggestions on how you can play with characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe / comics, or you could play with characters from the Lord of the Rings books / movies, or you could play as characters from, let's see, what else was I going to do? I was going to do Lord of the Rings, I was going to do, oh yeah, Geralt of Rivia, so the Witcher series as well. So basically I'm going to put together a couple characters, show you how I would build them, just to inspire you possibly, so if you wanted to play as one of these types of characters, maybe it'll inspire you to build your own. It is pretty cool. It is pretty advanced. Some of the customization you can do in here. There is some limitations, obviously, and hopefully the game will grow and be more free with what you can do. So to start with, I'll start with Geralt of Rivia, just because that's who I was playing recently. So the way that I did Geralt of Rivia, I created him as a human. There are 4 body types, which I am blocking with my camera here. So if I turn off my camera for a second, you can see the 4 body types in the bottom right corner. The largest male body type is the one that I picked for Geralt. What I ended up doing for class for Geralt, I feel like the fighter is the best option. Not only because of the sword on the back for the Witcher, but if you become an Eldritch Knight, you can actually cast some basic spells that are very similar to taking some of the Witcher elixirs, in my opinion, but they also allow you to do some of the signs, like the sign of Ard with thunder, the shockwave, the thunder wave. I think it's similar enough to give you a feel of playing a Witcher in Baldur's Gate 3. Now, how do I make them look? So fighting style wise, let's talk about a few of these, and then we'll go in and build so it looks kind of like Geralt of Rivia, in my opinion, the way I would build him. All right, so, I'm sorry, one second here. All right, so you have a couple options for fighting styles. Personally, I feel like since he's always going to be using a sword, you might consider going dueling. Dueling gives you the option, so if you're wielding a melee weapon that is not two-handed or versatile in one hand, you could technically do a shorter sword with this, but you can't really use a long sword because that's a versatile weapon. I don't think it will technically count if you're wielding it in one hand. So I don't know. I don't know if the dueling is going to apply. If you can use a long sword with dueling, that's probably going to be your go-to. What I ended up doing is I did a great weapon fighting style, the two-handed weapon, and I ended up getting Everburn in the beginning of the game and having that as his magically enhanced Witcher sword. So those are the 2 I would consider going with. You can also, of course, do defense. I think all 3 would apply great to Geralt of Rivia. Again, I went with great weapon fighting. So background-wise, you have a couple options here, but I actually ended up going with Sage because as a Witcher, you need to be very well educated in lore and monsters, and you do a lot of research and study. So I feel like Arcana and history would apply to Geralt of Rivia. It's up to you, but I feel like for me, like I said, that's the one that I feel most applies to it. Now, stat-wise is kind of completely up to you. What I ended up doing, of course, is maxing out strength just because the mutagens, a Witcher mutant is going to have probably a lot of strength. And because Constitution and Dexterity are so important, I think I put them somewhere around 14. I'd have to check the other character. Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma, though, yeah, I did it a little bit differently. This is probably a decent build. You could take away from his strength a little bit, because I feel like with Geralt of Rivia specifically, yeah, I don't know if I would take that much away. He's going to have a lot of Constitution stuff as well. The only reason I think Charisma might be a decent idea to have for a Witcher is just for the intimidation factor, potentially. I don't think Charisma is necessarily going to be as important, and it also not is going to play into the fighter at all. You don't need to have Charisma for a fighter. Wisdom and Intelligence, I think, apply to Geralt just for the simple fact that he is very intelligent, and he is very perceptive of what's going on around him because of his Witcher skills. So at least having an 11 in those makes sense to me. Constitution and Dexterity, you could probably increase a little bit. I almost feel like sometimes Geralt might be more of a dexterity finesse fighter with his sword than he is a straight-up strength fighter. That's going to be kind of left up to you, but this is about how I would probably think of putting his stats. If I change any of the things here, I think, I mean, athletics makes sense. And of course, Arcana and History we get from the background. I might look at stuff like Insight, because he's able to read situations around him and stuff like that. Maybe Perception, because of how well they pay attention to what's around him. Intimidation, of course, makes sense. I don't like the Persuasion, so I would take Persuasion off for sure. Survival is a consideration, but, you know, tracking, staying alive in the wilderness, that's definitely fits a Witcher. I don't know. Looking at some of these, I think... Yeah, acrobatics might not be a bad idea either, so probably go with acrobatics, because a lot of those would make sense, I think, for a Witcher. So those are a few options to think about. So how would you build them? I feel like this particular face here is the closest to Henry Cavill. It looks very, very similar to his face. It's usually my go-to face for most of the human or half-elf type. Well, actually, it doesn't apply for the half-elf. For the humans that I end up building, I typically go with this face, period, but I think it actually applies here. Looking at some of these different faces, you could use any of the ones that call out to you when you're trying to build them. I feel like this head here, head 4, matches the closest. And I believe it was voice 7.
It's opened. More of those wretched things. There's magic keeping this chest sealed. I can feel its aura.
Yeah, so voice 7, head 4, skin color, Witchers are fairly pale, but not super pale. So I end up going with the pallid color. So I think a pallid 2 or 3 might be a decent choice. Then down here, of course, we want to go with Scar 1 to give Geralt his facial scar. Now, the problem here is that this facial scar, I believe, should be on the left side, not the right. You can't flip sides in the game, unfortunately, but at least you're giving him his facial scar, so I would give him that. I do up the maturity level a little bit here, because I feel like Geralt has some age to him, especially in the later games like Witcher 3. How far up you go is completely up to you. So that's what I put for general. For the body art here, I don't do anything. I leave that alone. Eyes. There are some gold eyes, and I was playing around with a couple of the different gold eyes, and I think it's Summer Elf was the one, or it was the Topazes that I ended up. Here we go. Topaz 1 and 2, I think, look like Witcher eyes to me. I think I went with Topaz 1 for my Geralt. But I think both Topaz and the Elf Summer give that kind of Witcher yellow gold eye look that we're looking for. You can't have the cat eyes with the slit in the middle, unfortunately, so you have to go with something that's close to it. I think even the demonic eyes, it just gives you the black in the background. So I tried looking through a few different ones, and I really do feel like Topaz 1 or 2 is probably going to be your best bet. Makeup-wise, I actually do recommend putting makeup on them because it gives that sunken-in look that you typically see in the game. Maybe lighten it up a little bit, leave it as black, maybe take it back just a hair to give those shadows on the eyes with what's going on there. You could also consider, too, in the eyes here, you could go with one of the demonic ones. I think the Topaz by itself looks better, but if you go for a demonic yellow, it's kind of like what you see in the series, where he takes the elixir and his eyes go black. So that is another possibility on one of the looks that you can consider doing if you wanted to. Completely up to you. But yeah, I would go with like Topaz 1. Hair-wise, I think going for white 5 makes sense for me. I mean, you have some different ways that you can do this. You can even go with a slightly gray, but I think I'm going to go with white 5. And then I end up not using highlights or anything. I mean, you could if you wanted to give it a little bit of a highlight. I don't use the highlight or the graying at all, but if you were going to, I would keep it on the whiter side with him being the White Wolf. Hairstyles. There are 2 big hairstyles that I think fit the best. Of course, in Witcher 3, you can have different hairstyles, so you could pick something else. But the 2 that stand out most to me, of course, is the hair pulled back and like a Qui-Gon Jinn style. So there is the Fair Forester, which I think gives a really decent look. And then there is this one down here, which is the Pinned and Perfect. Now, what this does is it allows the hair to come out in the front. I don't like this one as much for The Witcher, so I end up going with this one up here, which is Fair Forester. I think that fits Geralt pretty well. Now, you can do with or without a beard. As you can see here, it has a very Henry Cavill kind of look from the Witcher TV series. So I think this is great. I think you could probably stop here, but I also like in Witcher 3 where he already has a beard, so I actually do throw a beard on him, a nice short crop beard. You could go a little bit longer, but I just usually end up going with this first one here, which is the jaw clinger, and I just leave it as the default from the beginning. So there you go. When you build him, keep him as a fighter, level him up in fighter, choose Eldritch Knight when you come to it, and I think that pretty much represents Geralt of Rivia in the game when you're playing. Hopefully that helps. Probably could put timestamps on some of these too, but anyway. Moving on. Let's go back to edit character, and let's look at building Ciri. So Ciri obviously would be female. I feel like the large built female doesn't fit Ciri as much as the smaller framed female. So I would go with the body type 1 if you're going to be building out Ciri. Strength-wise, I would probably take her strength down a hair and probably give her a little bit more in dexterity. I think that fits Ciri a little bit better. She seems to be headstrong, so even though I think wisdom and intelligence still fit her well, I might actually take down her wisdom a little bit and possibly increase that dexterity even a little bit more. I wouldn't touch her constitution unless I'm giving her a little bit more constitution. You could also keep her on intelligence and give her a little bit more intelligence. She is pretty sharp-minded, and she does learn magic, which would fit with the character, I think. Background-wise, I think there's the noble, which kind of fits her being raised in Sintra. So history and persuasion, I think, would fit her really nicely. So I would give her the noble background, give her those stats. I would not give her the intimidation, even though I think it definitely applies to later, older Ciri, which is what we're building anyway. Let's see, how would I change this up? Acrobatics I would definitely leave there for sure. Athletics I would leave. History makes sense. Intimidation. Persuasion looks good. Maybe give her some performance or deception, potentially. Maybe some insight. Insight might fit her, so maybe I'll take away the intimidation and give her insight instead. Might fit Ciri a little bit better, in my opinion. I would give her the fighting style, probably of dueling. Again, you can consider the great sword. I think the same things that you had considered for Geralt would apply for her as well. Maybe even defense, of having better defense by wearing armor, because she is a pretty good combatant. So I don't know if I would necessarily have her do more damage as be more defensive for herself, because by her learning the Witcher fighting style, I feel like it made her a better fighter for survival, and she didn't always seem to, in the books at least, she didn't seem to go out of her way to try to kill. It was more about staying alive and being finesse with her fighting. So up to you how you want to do it, but that's what I would consider. Again, human race, class fighter for sure. Let's go over here to edit appearance. Now, voice-wise, I didn't go through all the voices for Ciri.
Where to next? Let's hope the locals are friendly.
4 is a maybe.
Hell, be wary.
It's more of those wretched things. Where
Yeah.
Let's hope the locals are friendly.
I think 4 fits Ciri the best.
Something just woke up down here.
Face-wise, she has very elven features. I don't know if that one's necessarily going to fit. Let's see. That's a maybe. Head 5 looks like it might be a good fit for her. Or even the default one. Let's go with the head 1 for her. I feel like she's a lot paler than Geralt, so I would give her pallid tone 1. Body art. Wouldn't give her any body art. Eyes. I would give her green eyes, I believe she had in the books. Maybe a green 1 or a green 2. I like green 1 because of the little brown flecks in there. I think that would fit. Makeup-wise, definitely some eyeliner. Now, hers, I would give her a little bit lighter than what Geralt had on. Let me see if one of these fit pretty well. Yeah, maybe makeup 3. I feel like she would have a little bit darker of circles. Maybe we would go all out with makeup 7 again. And again, I would actually probably increase that just a hair. Hair-wise, likewise, we're going to go with some whitish hair, but in her case, it's more of an ash blonde. So I would give her blonde ash 1 to make it real light. And then I would add in some either gray natural or gray white. Probably gray white highlights and increase that just a hair. Because as far as I remember in the book, she was almost like a platinum blonde. And then I would actually add some graying going on to add some more flair to that. and give it a gray-white again and maybe increase that just a hair. So I think that would work for her hair color. Now, hairstyle, I went through these, and I remember finding it before because I actually made Geralt's Guardian look like Ciri. But there is a partial ponytail with some hair down that I thought fits Ciri real nicely. Let's see if I can find it again. No, I don't think it was this one. No, it wasn't that one for sure. That's a possible consideration. We might change the face up. I'm not sure if it's working with the hairstyle now. Nope, wasn't that one. It was one of these partially up, partially down do's for the ladies here. No. Yeah, not with the braids on that one. That one's a big possibility. That one might work there. That is Lone Wolf Bun. Interesting. Yeah, it must have either have been this one or the one I had towards the bottom. Flaunting Bounce. So Lone Wolf Bun or Flaunting Bounce. I think both of those would make a reasonable consideration for her hairstyle. It's Windswept. Already tried looking at that one. Yeah, none of these are going to fit very well for her. Yeah, I remember trying to dig to try to find a good hairstyle for her, and I wasn't able to find anything that really spoke to me as being a good fit. And of course, you always pull up like a reference to the game and try to find something cool. There we go. That's not too bad either. That is Troberic's Knot? Troberic's Knot? Wow, that's a hard one to say. That's not a bad one. Looks a little too formal for, I think, would fit her. So I think I'm going to end up going with that other one I found. Let's see, where did I put it? Lone Wolf Bun. Let me see this one, yeah. Lone Wolf Bun, I think that fits her the best. So there we go. Now I mentioned possibly changing the face one more time. So let's look at these other faces real quick, see if something fits her a little bit better. Yeah, I don't like some of these faces for her. That one's not bad. I think head 5 or head 1 would probably be the best fit for her. Yeah, I'm going to go with head 1. So there you go. That would be Ciri from The Witcher. All right, so that's 2 characters from the Witcher series. So let's talk about a couple others. Let's talk about Marvel next. So the 2 characters I'm going to be looking at specifically would be Doctor Strange, Stephen Strange, and Shang-Chi. Let's start with Shang-Chi. So likewise, we're going to continue to create some more humans. With Shang-Chi, he is definitely going to be a monk. Pretty straightforward and clear there. I think he would stay a monk the whole time, too. I don't think I would multi-class him at all. Background. So Shang-Chi, I feel like either soldier or possibly criminal, depending on how you want to go about it. So if you go with the MCU, the fact that he was raised as a criminal, that doesn't necessarily fit story-wise for me with the comics. So the comics, I think I might go with like a soldier type of a deal, or maybe even Outlander. Criminal might be considered for the new one. Deception and stealth would be both good, decent things, but Outlander with athletics and survival, or athletics and intimidation, I would go with Outlander. So let's build him with Outlander. Let's clear his stats again. Obviously, we're going to max out his dexterity. That does fit Shang-Chi perfectly, so I would leave that alone. It would also give him some constitution. Maybe put his strength up to 10. Intelligence, maybe 11. Wisdom around 10. Charisma, I wouldn't put too high. You probably could even drop that a little bit more, but I would probably put his constitution up even higher. Possibly dropping his charisma. For some reason, I hate playing with stats below 10, but yeah, you'd have to drop that a lot in order to bump up his constitution even more. Oh, you can't, because 15, and you would do the +1. There we go. So you're +2 in dex for the 17. So constitution And dexterity I would max out for sure. History kind of makes sense. Insight's a maybe. I think perception would work for Shang-Chi. Stealth would also work. Possibly sleight of hand. Acrobatics and athletics are a must. Maybe take out some of the history. Maybe give him stealth instead. Acrobatics. There we go. Maybe something like that. And now that we have that built, let's go over to appearance. Obviously, we're going to switch it over to a male. I think it's going to be the smaller framed male. I don't think the larger frame male would fit with Shang-Chi in the comics or in the movie. I would probably go with, I think there's, it's not cool. Where is it at? I think it's war. No. Maybe let's go to all tones. Maybe it was towards the top. Was it cool tone? Definitely warm tone. Looks like it fits better. Yeah, let's go with a warm tone 2. Face-wise, unfortunately, there's only one real face. 7's the closest we can get to at least making him look like he might be Chinese. None of the other faces are even close, so unfortunately we're kind of pigeonholed. Even though this is not a good match for either the comics or the movies, 7's really our only choice, in my opinion. Body art, no body art. Eyes, I would probably give him a set of brown eyes, darker brown probably. Brown 4 looks good, so we'll give him brown 4 eyes. No makeup. Hairstyle. So I definitely want to give him a natural black hairstyle. And there's only really 2 hairstyles I would consider for Shang-Chi. One of them I think is Windblown. No, it's not that one. Sorry. Yeah, this is one of them. Gives it a very Bruce Lee kind of look. Moonshade cap. But honestly, I feel like it fits better if we go with this other one. Not that one. Where's it at? Here it is. Yeah. It is Windblown. Weird. Maybe I was just looking at it from the wrong side. Okay. So Windblown with this side part here I think fits Shang-Chi pretty well. So Windblown, you can consider a Moonshade cap, possibly. It does give it a very comic-esque feel. There's also... I wouldn't say it's that one. If you look at him in the comics, he basically has a mullet. So you can consider this eerie peak if you want to go with Shang-Chi from the comics, even though he has like a red headband and stuff. That's something you might think about for Shang-Chi. But I feel like these two up here for the modern Shang-Chi or even the modern movie, this would fit the modern movie pretty well from the MCU. So I would go with Windblown, black natural hair. I wouldn't alter it with any highlights or graying. I wouldn't give him any facial hair. Brown 4 for the eyes, and that's basically it. There's Shang-Chi.
Are you kidding me?
All right. So the next one, let's talk about building Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange, there's a few options here. Now, I've seen online debates with folks saying, if Doctor Strange was in Dungeons & Dragons, would you be building a sorcerer or would you be building a wizard? Sorcerer doesn't fit him. Doctor Strange learned all of his spells through hard study, and he's all about books. He does research. He has a library in his Sanctus Sanctorum. He does all sorts of information, and he tries to memorize it. To me, he's 100% a wizard. No question about it. Now, here's the caveat, and a lot of people don't necessarily realize this. So he has to be a wizard. But Doctor Strange is actually an incredible martial artist and can go toe-to-toe with a lot of folks in the MCU. So I would actually multi-class him with Monk. Does a wizard monk work for D&D? It's probably not optimal, but that's not the point. We're trying to create Doctor Strange. So I would actually multi-class him at least a dip of 1 level in the monk. Maybe 3. It's just his powers of wizardry or sorcery from MCU are so powerful. I probably would focus on wizardry. I would make him a wizard, dip 1 level in Monk, and then focus the rest on Wizard. If you are going to dip further into Monk to give him a more semblance of his martial arts prowess in the comics, you might consider up to 3 or even 5. But remember, in Baldur's Gate 3, you have to stop at 12. So to really get his power of spellcasting, I'd go a little bit higher. But you got to remember, too, that Doctor Strange is not necessarily super powerful because his magic is so strong. It's because he's so intelligent and uses it appropriately. I think that's really what makes him excel. And his power levels have waxed and waned in the comics. So doing a level 5 Monk with a level 7 Wizard in Baldur's Gate 3 does make sense. How would you progress that? Wizard, Monk, and then I would do 2 levels of Wizard, and then level 2 of Monk, and then I would go back and forth. That's what I would do. Up to you how you want to go about it, but definitely Wizard, hands down, no question about it. What school? Abjuration, I think, would fit him, as well as Evocation. So when you're picking your school for your wizardry, I would definitely pick the subclass of Abjuration Wizard first, and then possibly consider doing an Evocation Wizard as an alternative to that. Cantrips, you're starting cantrips. I would probably think of stuff that is very utilitarian with Doctor Strange. I know Firebolts and Ray of Frost and your attack spells make a lot of sense, but with Doctor Strange, I feel like Dancing Lights fits better than Light. I don't feel like he would light up an object. He would create light in front of him if he needed to use it for utility. I would consider Mage Hand. And then maybe Blade Ward. Those cantrips feel like they fit Doctor Strange for me. Now, he does have some attack spells that he does, and he does do Energy Blast, so maybe you would throw Firebolt in instead. Maybe that would make more sense because he is going to be fighting with his magic, not necessarily getting up close and using his martial arts. So probably would put in Firebolt. Maybe I would pick up the Blade Ward at a future level. So maybe starting spells Dancing Light, Mage Hand, and Firebolt. His prepared spells, let's clear these out. Definitely feel like Chromatic Orb is right up his alley. 100% would do Chromatic Orb. I would probably do Shield for sure. Absolutely would do Shield. Fits him 100% in comics and movies. Ice Knife is a high consideration. Sleep Spell is a maybe. Let's put that up for now. Magic Missile is right up his alley as well. And let's see, is there anything else I would consider? Charm Person, possibly. Protection from Good and Evil, possibly. Fog would kind of fit along those lines. Trying to see if anything else here really stands out to me that would fit Doctor Strange like. Yeah, maybe Charm Person or Fog would be at the top of my list. Let's go with Fog. So, Chromatic Orb, Shield, Ice Knife, Sleep, Magic Missile, and Fog. Let's talk about abilities. Yeah, 100%. 100% max out his intelligence. 100% fits Doctor Strange. I would not give him a lot for strength. Not only because wizards don't need it, but I don't think he necessarily needs it. But I would give him at least a little bit. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the negative numbers. It's up to you. You could leave that as a dump stat. His dexterity, I would actually give him some dexterity. Constitution, like I said, I would just push it up just a hair. He spends a lot of time researching and studying, and though he does martial arts so he stays fit and in good shape, he does have a tendency in the comics to neglect his physical health by questing and pushing himself too far. So maybe the Constitution would stay a little bit lower. Charisma does work for him. I wouldn't do a really high. His ability to interact with others and convince them and have that presence would make sense, but I don't know. I would give him more wisdom. I would definitely crank up that wisdom. Maybe that last stat I would put here in charisma. So 10, 14, 10, 17, 13, 11 might be pretty decent for him. Background, Sage. 100% Sage would fit him. Let's see. Proficiency, Stealth. We're going to take Stealth away. Investigation, we probably leave it. Insight. Medicine is a 100% must for Doctor Strange. He is literally a surgeon before he basically retires. So medicine must be there for Doctor Strange. Insight we might leave. Investigation we might leave. What else would we consider here? Arcana and History we have. Performance, Persuasion, Perception. Maybe Perception might be a decent thing, but it looks like I can't select that outside of this stat here. So for these second skill proficiencies, I wouldn't be able to pick that. So out of the 3 that it's allowing me to pick, because if I remove that, Insight and Investigation make the most sense to me over Religion. So I think that would be decent there. All right, and then preparing spells, I mean, that's kind of up to you, but I would have shield prepared for sure. Chromatic orb. Maybe... Yeah, maybe ice knife and fog. And that's probably what I would do for prepared spells. It don't matter. Play them how you want there. All right, let's go ahead and edit them. So, voice-wise.
Be wary. This place is trapped.
We forgot the voice for Shang-Chi, didn't we?
It's like
More of those.
there's magic keeping this
Where to next? Let's hope the locals are friendly. Be wary. This place is trapped.
It's
More of those wretched things. There's magic keeping this chest sealed.
I would
feel its aura.
I would do voice 1 for Shang-Chi. I would also use voice 7 for Doctor Strange. Face-wise, I think this 6 is not too bad. There is a similarity with Benedict Cumberbatch there if you wanted to go for that look. I also, as mentioned, Head 4 has always been a favorite of mine. So we'll check them both out once we build the rest. Doctor Strange, I'd probably give him Pallid 2 or Pallid 3. The neutral is not bad. Yeah, I think neutral is going to fit him a little bit better. Let's go with neutral 1. Let's go with neutral 1 for Doctor Strange. No scars. Maturity, I would definitely increase the maturity because again, he's a doctor. He's lived a little bit, so I'd up the maturity a little bit. No body art. Eyes, I would probably give him green eyes. Let's see. Green 3 doesn't look too bad. The emerald ones are not too bad either, but they're a little too bright. So I think a green 3 fits him the best, in my opinion. Makeup, no makeup. Hair. So this hair right here is actually not bad, but I would make it brown-black, or black-brown, over natural black. Facial hair, you can go with the classic look for Doctor Strange, which is just a mustache. So we could go with this look. And that would fit for classic Doctor Strange. Now, a lot of people prefer the more modern look where he has a goatee. So there is a plain... So really quick, that's pomposity for this mustache. The other mustache by themselves do not look right for Doctor Strange. So this is the best mustache, in my opinion, if you were going to go with that classic look from the comics. You could come up here to plain goatee, which gives him more of that modern Doctor Strange look. So this is a good look for him. Hair-wise, likewise, like I was saying before, this hair is not bad. This windblown works for him. But I actually like Eerie Peak a lot better. Granted, he usually doesn't have this long of hair in most of his incarnations. I've got plenty of figures I could probably pull down and show you some of the classic looks. But there are iterations of him with longer hair. Including Ultimate Spider-Man, he has longer hair, even longer than this. And there was a version in the comics which he was younger, he had circular glasses, he had clean shaven, and he had really long hair down to his shoulder blades. So you could do some variations here, but I feel like, yeah, see that one's a little too short. This top part fits him to me better than this. This is a possibility, and I've seen him look like that in the comics, but I think it's pretty much a toss-up between Windblown and Eerie Peak, in my opinion. I like Eerie Peak better. Now, I would also increase some of the highlight a little bit. I'd probably do like a gray natural 3, go up maybe 2 or 3 clicks just to give it a little touch of gray. Maybe a little bit higher. Yeah. Let's go up to about 10. And then I would actually do the graying here. I will leave it as natural graying. And I will... Let's turn it sideways. Unfortunately, we can't do his classic white streaks over his ears, but we can give him that touch of gray in the hair, which I do feel like helps. So this is gray natural 1, and it's up to 47. Alright, so let's look at the faces here. And like I said, 6 is another consideration because it has a very Benedict Cumberbatch feel, in my opinion. I don't know. Let me show you the other hair too with this. I still think 4 is a better option. So let's go down the Windblown. It's towards the bottom here. So here's Windblown. So that is one possibility for Doctor Strange. And like I said, I prefer this one. I think that fits him better. So there's that hairstyle. And my preferred hairstyle for him, like I said, is going to be that Eerie Peak. So that is how I would build Doctor Strange. Wizard, multi-classed into monk. Now, I actually will not give him a weapon. I'll actually play with just the spells, because it fits the character. He usually doesn't have an actual weapon on him. So just casting the spells, and then if you do dip in the monk, if you were to be silenced, you could use your martial arts, which is kind of gives it that backup. So I think that fits it as well. All right, so let's talk about a few of the Lord of the Rings characters. We will start with Gandalf. Now, same body build for Gandalf, 100% for sure. I would probably multi-class Gandalf as a sorcerer. Now, here's the difference. Gandalf literally has the magic in him. So, I mean, you could technically do a sorcerer wizard with him because he does do a lot of research and study. But I feel like his magic is innate, and it's a part of who he is as a being, as a Midar, I believe they're called. Olorin is his actual name, I believe, but everyone calls him Gandalf on Middle-earth, or Mithrender. So, yeah, with Gandalf, I would make him a sorcerer. So, human, sorcerer, and let's see, background, definitely sage as well. Abilities, I wouldn't change too much. I would drop his dexterity a bit, and I would actually put his +2 into intelligence. Well, he kind of needs the charisma to cast his spells. So let's put that here like that. And I'm out of stuff for his wisdom, because his wisdom would also need to be a little bit higher. So maybe something along these lines, 10, 10, 10, 15, 14, 16 for Gandalf. Medicine, that's not really his forte. Deception is a maybe. Persuasion is a must for him. Absolute must for him. Insight, definitely think we need to give him insight. Since some of these are limited, I'll pick it from over here. So persuasion, insight. We already have history and arcana. Maybe perception. Maybe perception or investigation. That's your wisdom, investigation. Yeah, let's do it with investigation. Kind of a close between those two. Background sage, we talked about that. So subclass, we could give him wild magic, draconic magic, or storm sorcery. So what do we feel like is going to fit Gandalf the most? Your powers come from ancient forces of chaos. They churn within you, waiting to burst free at any time. That kind of really feels like it fits Gandalf. So I would probably make him a wild magic sorcerer. Cantrip-wise, we absolutely 100% need to do light. Because in the movies, right, he picks up a crystal from the mines of Moria, right? And he takes the crystal, blows on it, lights it up in the movie. It fits. It's a classic wizard type of feel for Middle-earth. So as a sorcerer, I would give him light 100%, no question about it. He is more of an attack person with attack spells and stuff. And even though I think stuff like Dancing Lights and Mage Hand might be kind of things to consider, I feel like he usually does stuff like protection, right? So Blade Ward, Firebolt for his attack, maybe Ray of Frost. So that's probably how I would build out Gandalf. Spells. So he gets 2 spells. Shield is 100% going to be chosen. And maybe Fog. I think that would fit with Gandalf pretty well. I don't know. In the movies and stuff, you don't see him attacking a lot, which is why I'm saying you should multi-class him for sure. Considerations for multi-classing. Now, you can consider a warlock. Maybe have an archfey. Maybe that applies to the Maiar, the other beings that he is part of. So he has a pact with the folks that actually sent him down to Middle-earth. That would actually work. Then he could use a sword. That sword and staff stuff that he does in a movie would apply. You can consider making him a fighter, but you would need to get him to Eldritch Knight, potentially, or just 1 level of fighter, just to be able to wield a sword. He's not going to be wearing armor, which is why Warlock might be a better choice for you. The only other thing I could think of is, I guess you could do a dip into Ranger, potentially, to at least give him some of the sword stuff. But yeah, aside from having him equip a sword and be able to do some actual melee attack, this would be the considerations. Is either going to be warlock or fighter, in my opinion. I don't think anything else is necessarily going to fit him. Look-wise, it's pretty straightforward. There's a couple faces here that are not too bad. I think 8 and 1 stood out the most to me. I like the sternness on 8 with the eyebrows, so I would probably go with 8. He's a little bit more weathered, so I would give him a little bit of a darker tone, like he's got some tanning going on from being out in the world. So maybe a natural tone 2 or 3. Let's go with 3 for right now. No scars. Definitely up the maturity to max, for sure. Body art, no body art. Eyes, I believe he had blue eyes. I mean, you can do it however you want, but I would probably give him some striking blue eyes. So maybe the blue too. You could look at some of the sapphire stuff as well, or maybe the elf shades, possibly. That's actually not a bad one. Elf blue 3. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to say elf blue 3, I think is a good shade for that. Hair. I would obviously go over here to white 5 for Gandalf the White. If you want to do Gandalf the Gray, maybe you would consider something along the lines of Gray 1. I'm thinking of playing him as Gandalf the White, so I probably would go with 5. Natural graying and stuff, I would definitely turn some of the stuff on, and I would increase some of those numbers a bit based upon how comfortable you are. But I would give him some extra graying too. Now, hairstyle-wise, I actually prefer the one at the very, very, very bottom. It's called Will-O-Wisp. I feel like that fits. You could also do a Sauron like this, by the way. Without changing too much, if you just change the face to 5, that's a very Sauron kind of look. Let me get his beard on first. Beard-wise, definitely go with the longest beard, with it, which is Rambling Obscenity. I mean, that looks like Saruman. So you kind of, there's a Saruman too while you're at it. Same thing with the Sorcerer. Some of these other beards just feel a little short for me. This might work if you remember Gandalf. Let me turn his face back to that other face that we were talking about. Like I said, I like the severity there in the eyes. This beard might work for Gandalf, the White, because if you remember, Gandalf had a shorter beard when he came back in the movies, at least, if you're trying to go for that movie look. But again, you would want to dip into the white here. So that could be Gandalf the White right there. But since we're also considering the idea of Gandalf the Gray with that Gray 1, I would go with this hairstyle here. So I feel like that's a very Gandalf feel, Gandalf the Gray. You could also do some considerations with the hair. And do that one that we did for Geralt earlier. And give him the wizard hat, because if you remember, there was a few times he did wear his hair like that in the movie. That would fit too. So again, that one is called Fair Forester. That is a consideration if you don't like the one at the bottom. I don't think something like this side part fits him very well. And I looked at some of these other ones. Like this one's not too bad either with the thickness. This one is called Conqueror. So I mean, that's something you can consider too with that kind of a look for Gandalf. If that feels too slicked back. But I like this one better. I like the Fair Forester on him a little bit better. And once more, I mean, even if you wanted to leave it longer to go with Gandalf the White, you could do that. And if we wanted to see it just with a shorter beard, we could see that as well. I feel like this beard is way too short. So you got to find that nice balance between what's too long and what's too short. That one doesn't look too bad, even pulled up in that little braid. I just don't know if the braid fits him, for my opinion. That one's got too much braids going on for me, so I really feel like it's between these two. But that would be Gandalf. So, Sorcerer Warlock or Sorcerer... I'm sorry. Yeah, Sorcerer Warlock or Sorcerer Fighter, in my opinion. I don't think I would do any dips in the Wizard. Not for him. Alright, let's talk about Aragorn. So I don't think we need to really do Sauron. Just Saruman and Gandalf is... You saw it's just basically the face change, I think. And you could come up with what spells you feel like work best for you for those characters. For Aragorn and even Legolas, I feel like Ranger is was designed for them. So 100% needs to be a human Ranger, or if you're building Legolas, you could do a High Elf Ranger. Now, actually, I wouldn't even know if I would make him a human, honestly. I'd probably make him a half elf. Because if you remember, he actually has some elven blood in him. So if we were going to go here with this whole half-elf, likewise, I would do the smaller build with the 2. Just to hide my camera again there in the bottom right, I would do the build 2 for the male. Subrace here, Wood Elf is definitely a consideration for one of the Dunedain. You could go with the High Elf. I think the High Elf fits Legolas more, so I would make him a full High Elf. I wouldn't make him a half Elf, so I would do a half Wood Elf with Aragorn personally. Ranger class. Which one of these fits him best? I would probably say one of the Wanderers. Maybe a Fire Wanderer, because he spent time in Mordor and surviving in Mordor. So I might make him a Wasteland Wanderer of Fire. That's probably what I would go with for there. Favored enemies. I feel like... So you're sworn to hunt down enemies of a holy or druidic order. Ranger, you are sworn to serve a crown and nation and seek. Bring phones. That kind of Night Ranger kind of fits. Magebreaker, I don't think fits him. Keeper of the Veil, you specialize in hunting creatures from other planes of existences. You gain proficiency in investigation for bounty hunter. Yeah, so I think Ranger Knight fits him the most. Background, I would probably go with an Outlander background for him. Noble would also work as well. But I feel like the way that Aragorn grew up, I feel like Outlander fits him better. Skill-wise, let's clear these out. Obviously, we're going to max out that dexterity 100%. I think we're going to give him a pretty high constitution. His intelligence, maybe an 11 or a 12. His wisdom, probably an 11. His charisma, an 11. And I think we would put the rest in strength. So 10, 17, 14, 12, 11, 11, I think are the stats I would do for him. Nature is a requirement. Animal handling, I think, is good. Perception probably makes sense to me. Insight is maybe something you might want to think about doing over perception. But, I mean, it's kind of up to you which one you prefer. I think perception fits him better because paying attention to his surroundings. He's not around people a lot, so maybe insight is not as good. As far as editing his appearance and stuff, likewise, I think he spends a lot of time outside, so I would give him a mildly darker complexion than normal. Maybe even tap into some of these elvish complexions down here with, like, maybe one of the earth tones. Earth tone 2 is not too bad. If you want to go for more of a feel like Viggo Mortensen from the movies, you could probably go with a little bit of a lighter tone. But I really feel like this earth tone 1 fits him. Face-wise, we would definitely change this face. Let's find his voice.
Something. Be wary. It's opened.
More.
There's magic keeping this chest.
Where?
What was that? Let's hope the locals are friendly.
That would be Gandalf's voice is probably 5, by the way. I keep forgetting the voices for the other characters.
This place, it's opened. More of those.
7 again, I think fits. This is too fair. That one's not too bad. No, I think I would go with head 3 or head 2 for Aragorn. I'm digging head 3. I think that's a good look for Aragorn. And again, you could always go with a human instead if you really wanted to. Maturity, I would up his maturity a little bit, but the Dunedain, they do live a little bit longer, with him being mixed with elven blood. I think, you know, because he was like 80 in the movies. Those who didn't know that, now you do. Eyes, I think he had blue eyes. So I would definitely give him one of these elf blues or maybe one of the sapphire ones. Nah, I think I would go with an elf blue. Elf blue 1, I think, fits pretty decently. Alright, no makeup. If you're going to give him makeup at all, maybe some close eyeshadow and lighten it up a lot. Just to give it a little bit of color. Nah, I don't like that one at all, actually. That's not going to fit him. Yeah, I don't think I would give him makeup, honestly. I think I will leave him without makeup. That's not bad. If you're going to go with makeup at all, maybe the makeup 1. And just lighten it up a bit. Hair-wise, so we're definitely going to give him a black-brown or even a black one, but I think black-brown works the best, possibly just brown. Highlights, I think we can give him a little bit of graying, and I think we are going to touch it a tad. I don't want to go too high, maybe closer to a 5, if you can inch it over to a 5. I don't know if you can click here. No, of course not. Just a touch of color. Facial hair, obviously we want to give him a beard. I mean, the scruffy beard works just fine. You could give him more of a beard, but I think the scruffy one fits Aragorn better, especially the way we've seen him. Hair-wise, we're going to look for something mildly shoulder length in nature. Something like that is not too bad. It is a little bit more on the feminine side. Let's see. Nope, 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 nope. That is not... That's a no good. Let's see. Any of these other ones fit him at all? That's a no. That's a no. That's not terrible. This one's wavelet, but I don't like it for Aragorn. This is a big possibility because it's kind of like not well kept or taken care of. It's Willow Tears. I feel like it's a little long, but it's something to maybe consider. I don't like that one at all. Yeah, I don't think any of these other ones are going to fit. By the way, that would be good hair for Lord Elrond if you wanted to build Lord Elrond. I'd probably make him a cleric. Maybe like a war cleric, I think would work, because he has some combat experience for Elrond. Now, the problem with Lord of the Rings is I could probably make all the characters in this, and this has already gone on for quite some time. I think I'm going to go with Rover's Tumble. I think that's going to fit him the best. So I think that's how I would make Aragorn. So, yeah, and like I said, if you're going to go with elves, I would do a high elf for Legolas, and I would do a wood elf for Elrond. And Elrond, I would give one of these high looks here. That's not a bad one. I think I would go with one of these here. Probably this one for... This is head 1. And I'd probably give him...
Let's hope the locals are friendly.
3 is not too bad. I would give him much more of a paler look. And I would definitely give him... I can't remember what color his eyes are supposed to be. Let's give him some blue eyes, because I can't remember exactly what color his eyes are supposed to be. And he would definitely have black hair, so I would go with natural black. And I would go with that hairstyle I told you about earlier, which is down here. And I would make him a cleric for Elrond. And I would make him specifically, I would make him a war cleric. War clerics can actually use swords. I would probably keep him in medium armor, though, but he's definitely a healer. And god-wise or goddess-wise, I mean, it's kind of up to you, but I think Myliki is a decent choice. Or Saloon. Saloon could probably fit him, too. Probably give him Myliki, though. Background, I would give him a noble for Elrond. And for Sage would also work for him, too, by the way. Noble or Sage, because the history and persuasion, or canon history, I mean, they would both fit fairly well for him. I don't know, I feel like maybe I would do a Sage for Elrond. Definitely crank that wisdom up as high as possible. I would keep his strength on the lower side. Dexterity, I would give him a little bit. Constitution, a hair. Intelligence, I would give him a little bit more of. Charisma, I wouldn't put too high. I think he kind of pisses people off. So where would I put the rest? Probably in Constitution and Dexterity. And then possibly there 10, 13, 13, 13, 17, 10. And Religion fits. Insight definitely fits. I think Perception could also be something to consider. And possibly Arcana, which I can't give any into Arcana for. Cantrips. Guidance, 100% I would give him guidance. Intimidation. Thaumaturgy might be a decent thing for Elrond. And even though he doesn't use a lot of attack stuff, I would consider giving him the Sacred Flame. Prepared spells. Since, remember, clerics can pretty much get whatever they want. Healing Word. Cure Light Wounds. 100% would give those. Sanctuary I would probably consider giving to him. and then maybe Bless. I mean, you can mix and match all you want because that's how clerics are built, but that's how I would probably build Elrond. And like I said, Legolas, I would make a ranger. And I would make him a high elf. Probably would give him 1 for his voice. Probably some of the neutral ones up here, but slightly darker because he is outside a lot. Maybe a little bit lighter. Maybe would go into the pallid colors a little bit. And then face-wise, honestly, this head 5 is probably the best for Legolas. Yeah, no scars. Leave his maturity off. He's, you know, eternally young. Eyes-wise, I think he had blue or green eyes. Orlando Bloom probably had green eyes. Yeah, I think green eyes are going to fit him a little bit better. Let's give him a little bit darker green, though. Maybe something like a green 5. No makeup. Hairstyle. I think we need to do that weird, funky one that parts at the top. I mean, this seems a little too thick for him, so I wouldn't give him that hairstyle. I think I would probably give him this one here. I don't know if there's another one that's going to fit him better. I mean, you could do something like this where it's slicked back. That would also be decent for him. And I would give him one of the blonde shades. But I would definitely make it a little bit more yellow than that. Let's see. That's too light almost. No, not too bad. Gold blonde. Yeah, let's give him a blonde gold 1. Unless he's... Nah, the yellows aren't going to fit. Blonde gold 1 for sure. Make sure he has no highlights on. Oh, okay. That was giving him a little bit more shade to it. Let's go up here to gold. Give him a little bit more highlights. There we go. 39 with gold blonde 1 as a highlight. Now I'll go gold blonde 2. Even though it's a subtle difference. Not going to give him any graying hair. I don't like this one on him. Almost He-Man there, right? Oh, He-Man's another one we make. Probably give him this windswept. Side part just doesn't feel like it fits him for some reason for Legolas. And I don't like any of these other hairstyles for Legolas. Yeah, none of these seem like they fit. You need that long flowing hair. You could do the one where it's pulled back. I mean, you could do this, but I don't feel like that fits his hairstyle. I mean, the length is good, the straightness is good, but I don't know. I think I would do this windswept for Legolas. But yeah, definitely a ranger. Anyway, like I said, we could go on this for a while. I'm sorry, I've got to do Gimli. Got to do Gimli, and then we'll call it. So, dwarf for Gimli, 100% a dwarf. Now, it doesn't matter which dwarf you pick, but I feel like the shield dwarf fits him. But you don't have the stat changes, so it's not as important. He's going to be a fighter. Gimli's a fighter. I would give him defense. Background, I would give soldier to. I would max out his strength completely, and then I would bump up his constitution. For sure. Dexterity, I would give him a little bit of a dexterity, maybe a little bit of intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. If you're going to drop anything, like I said, I just don't like to have things below 10, but if you want to play with things below 10, I would drop his charisma a little bit, because you have to get to know him. He's kind of a sourpuss. Even though he has that intimidation factor, so maybe it's something to be worth considering so you can intimidate people. And then maybe drop his wisdom just a hair. I feel like he's just very focused on the fight from the way he was in the movies and the books. So maybe a 17, 10, 16, 10, 10, 11 might fit for him. Let's see. History, I think, would fit for him because he knows a lot about his people. And survival definitely fits as well. I think that's actually pretty good for his skills and proficiencies. And then, likewise here, it just depends on what you want to go with. Which one? I like head 3 for Gimli. And he's definitely got to have a little bit more of a tan. Cool tone 4 doesn't look too bad. Natural tone 4 is also not bad. I like natural tone 4 a little bit better for him. Yeah, not the pallid ones. Natural tone 4 is what I would go with. I like head 3. Here's some of the other faces. The only ones that I think might fit decently well would be head 1 or 3, but I think 3 I like better. Scars, you can give him a couple scars. I think that would fit. I mean, he is a warrior after all. I don't know which one I like the best, though. I don't like the facial eye scar. Maybe something like that. Scar 2 might fit, and I would increase his maturity. He's a little bit older dwarf, a little bit more experienced. No body art. Eyes. I think he had, like, grayish eyes, I thought. So, gray 1, gray 2. I want a little bit darker gray if they have it. I don't see a darker gray. Those are flame-colored ones. These are white. Oh, that's not bad. White 3, I think, would be a decent color for him. Hair color. I mean, I guess he had brown hair in the movie. I think red hair would fit, too. So I would probably give him a black-brown hair color, maybe even a brown 5. Let's go with black-brown hair color. And I definitely would give him the longer hair with the braid going on. This one here, the Conqueror, I think fits very well with Gimli. I like that one for him. You could do this, but I think this is slicked back too far. But, yeah, I would go with Conqueror. And then for his beard, we definitely need to give him a little bit more beard. I would either give him the Fireforged tassels or even the Rambling Obscenity. But I think the Fireforged tassels fit him the best. So that's how I would build Gimli. And of course, we'd have to give him his classic axe and stuff. So, there you go. We have tons of characters in Lord of the Rings to build. Hopefully this gives you some inspiration and some things to think about and consider. Hopefully you like this, and I will post this on YouTube. So, yep. Thanks for watching.